Okay, hello everyone. What inspires the hero to act? What inspires the sacrifice to have value? And in some sense, in the equation of life, what do we do with the unknown values? There has been certain moments in my life where I have looked at the design of how I know something in a moment, and as I've mentioned in my previous talks, it has led me to the edge of the unknown. We have a person named Aldous Huxley. He says there are things known and things unknown, and in between are the doors of perception. Now, what that means is man is never fully able to know everything. So in some sense, there are gaps in our knowledge, as if we didn't know there would be, our knowledge would be gaps in the unknown. The heroic impulse to transcend, I find, can be found in the interior structure of the human mind. What I mean by that is that we wonder about a value to our life. And when we wonder about a value to our life, we give it a direction. When we give it a direction, or better yet, we extract a direction out of a spectrum of various phenomena. And so what it is that it is values changing fundamentally. That means when you wake up, as I've noticed to a sensitive degree, I think I'm being extremely oversensitive in these talks in regards to the intersection of thought and matter, but it's kind of like you're a sort of energetic value, and if this energetic value doesn't express, it in some sense feels it was denied the life it wanted. So what it means is that there is a sort of need for expression. We as human beings need to have some sort of expression which kind of makes the attention of the being, the consciousness of the being, the wakefulness of the being like a hose. So so imagine from the moment you wake up, it's as if like they've turned on the hose, and this hose is fulfilling any moment with a shape. And when you sleep, for example, the hose gets turned off, or in some sense reduced in intensity. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a sort of stream of attributeless energy becoming an attributed kind of like shaped individual. That means when we look at individual freedom, we have to see, we need to look at the freedom of the world. Can we say any of us are free, even though we have freedom of speech and many sorts of freedoms, which are great advancements of civilization? But I'm saying, can we say when our world isn't free that we are free? Transformation can be said to come at its core. So if evolution can be said to be this urge to transform, what it means is something is remaining as the form is changing. We of course attribute that to the capabilities of the brain. However, Mr. Within finds that the brain emerged out of a field of intelligence and it holds its roots. That means I'm not saying everybody's connected, kumbaya oneness. I'm saying I'm saying like a sort of our roots are in a field of intelligence which are the extension of our conscious mind. Our body is like outside of the soil, kind of singular manifestation, branched out multidimensional subjectivity. To be honest, it's as if like when they ask the human being how many languages can you speak, it depends on how many intelligent points there are to speak with, or to have a sort of unique speech. So dimensions, 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 they're all around us, yet our articulation of them for each person, their experiences, move their writer's pen. It is true we get defined by our action, and the reason we get defined by our action because our subconscious gives into the atmosphere. Your environment is very important, and it's the job of the civilization to, the governing powers of civilization, to realize that the human being is a traveler in this world. That means if the governing powers know more than the people, they must in some sense take care of the people. If they know less than the people, they should not take care of it. And you can see this relationship in any sort of political system at any time, that in some sense, whenever there is a lack of care from the government, it's as if when the world is not helping you, you feel there is something wrong. Am I wrong with this? Many people are like this. When they feel they've been good and they're not rewarded, they're like, what the fuck, Cosmos? I thought being good gets you things. And it's as if you realize it has nothing to do with being good or bad. It has to do with being real or unreal. And I'm not using unreal, like authentic or unauthentic, you know. I think this is going to be a short one, guys. I'll just say a few things and then I'll end it off. It's been a long day. It's been a long eternity. So, here's the thing. On a rock in the middle of nowhere, there are creatures that evidently after 4 billions of years, 4 billion years of sophisticated kind of adaptation to the environment, we are this right now. This human being we see in the mirror is us. So when we try to truly go and try to get in data from the past, we see we're limited. When we try to get data from the future, we see we're limited. Only when we get data from what is present in the moment, we are limitless. Now, what do I mean by this? What I mean by this is that when I try to remember my past, because I'm remembering it from now, it is never the same memory as the moment I experienced it. What that in some sense means is everything you experienced that you can say was your yesterday is gone. We're just from the present moment kind of keeping its poetry alive. Now, when you look at the future is more gracious than the past. The past is a graveyard, but the future seems to be as if kind of like this bunch of boxes where underneath, behind one of them is heaven. Okay? So what I mean is that when we look at the future, there are potentials that could happen. Like you could literally scope the future and find a path, find a scheduled kind of planned path. But to be honest, a lot of what happens in the future is unknown. Similar to how you don't know when you're suddenly going to get hungry or sleepy, or you may have a thought, but you don't know exactly when, with a peak of it hits. So what I mean by that is that when we look at the past, because it is infused with imagination, we kind of say we can't be sure, and it's kind of like an infinite, flexible, abstract quality to it. So when the past and the future are kind of strangely intertwined, the present is the only data accessible. Now the present is, our species assumes that it is physical. It is like a phenomena of matter. Okay, we think it's only stuff. That's what we think. We just see stuff. It's not just stuff in this planet. We're not just electrons dreaming we're human beings, It's like, damn, these atoms made it far and they're philosophizing their own existence. Like, good job, these atoms are next level. It's like there's more than the atom, guys. It's all an activity. It's all an action. It comes and goes. The present is the only real thing. That is why it is a gift. The world is being conquered or devoured by time. And what that means is the opportunities of today will vanish when the opportunities of tomorrow arise. And so life, believe it or not, is a game. It's kind of like this is I don't want to say savage, but it's kind of this chaotic beauty to how life is designed, where there's such a thing as emptiness, as absence, as if you're here and then you're not. And then so endlessly people come here and they go. They come here and they go. And they come here and go. What is it? Earth is the best tourist attraction for lost souls. It's one of those things where reality has the loudest voice. And then dimensions arise. If you forget the foundations of the way you approach things, then you go astray. So for me, it's not just about a person having intelligence, it's also about finding that moment where you can synchronize. It's as if like you're seeing something that is a quality of how you feel your attention move. I don't know how to say it. I'm trying to create a relationship for the personality between the microcosm and the macrocosm, but the trouble is when the micro personality looks at the macro personality, it dissolves. That means the child's psychology as it grows on this planet is one, it's looking at the extreme of fear and it's looking at the extreme of joy. The extreme of joy tends to be associated with divinity. The extreme of fear tends to be associated with a sort of, it's like things are either becoming more infinite or they're becoming empty. I find that that's pretty much the two things that's happening in this cosmos: fullness and emptiness. So when you look at this, it's kind of very unique because you need emptiness if you want your vision to be full in a new way. So think of it this way: we tend to think that there is like our civilization. There was a civilization before, and there's a civilization now. Okay, so we feel there was this gap between earlier civilizations than us right now. So what it means is that, how can I tell you? It's like in one angle it's multidimensional, in one angle it's not. We cannot know or how would I say it, that gap in between is an implication of the emptiness of that civilization and the emptiness of our civilization. We tend to see it as the same, because emptiness is not a value. So it's like the number, any number you divide by zero is a philosophical absurdity, for mathematicians. You know, it's like when, for a mathematician, if they see a zero under a fraction, they will fucking shout. They will just start shouting, maybe not at anyone. It's so absurd. Because of how can you divide something that has no singular containment? Number one, you say at least you can divide it by itself. One pattern you can apply to itself. But the number zero is the transcendental number. Of course, we have in mathematics something called transcendental numbers, and I think it has to do with primes, if I remember correctly. Let me just ask Saint Google. Okay, in mathematics, a transcendental number is a real number or complex number that is not an algebraic number, that is not a root solution of a non-zero polynomial equation with integer coefficients. Let's just say it's an irrational number. It has to do with a single variable polynomial equation, and I don't know how to explain it, and I, to some degree, can envision it. But anyways, what I'm saying is the idea is there, okay? The idea of irrationality and rationality is there, and in order for rationality to transcend, it must transition through an irrational moment. So you see, we can say someone is irrational, but when we really look at it, they're not irrational all the time. You see, they have to do certain things in accordance to normality. Even like the craziest people on this earth still have to eat. So you see, they're not crazy enough not to eat. They still find a way to eat, right? So if they have enough intelligence to eat, that means they are not insane. They can attend to one task at least. Now they have to just replicate the pattern in other dimensions of their life. And it has to do with the honor of attention and the importance of reclaiming the human intelligence. So what that means is, regardless of what happens to you in this life, regardless of the levels of the falls and rises, always honor the real self. And your real self is not cannot be ideological. That means it cannot be dismissed, and at the same time, it cannot be the whole moment. You see, this is the thing. When we sometimes desire, when we want something to be in a certain way, that's like one thought wanting to be the whole moment, and it is impossible. Therefore, thoughts must be used as tools. This is why prayer was strangely a use of thought. You might not believe it. I mean, I'm pretty sure Western and secular audiences this may be uncommon to them, but in a lot of religious oriented kind of Abrahamic, and not just Abrahamic, but many religious cultures, there's lots of people who are influenced by this religious practice of, in Islam, they call it zakat, like prayer, For example, it's like the priests who had a rosary bead, or the Buddhist monk, And so the reason is they're trying to repeat. They are trying to keep their attention on one phenomenon until the truth opens up to them. There's actually a good Vedic story I remembered I'm going to share here. So the story is about this guru who's with his disciples in India in their monastery, you know, and their unique affiliation. And one day, this man comes up to the kind of main guy, to the guru, and the story is kind of being told by the disciple of the guy, you know. And he says, anyways, so there's this guru, and this guy comes and says, immediately, if you're enlightened, tell me what to do, you know. And some of the people there are like, yo, man, we've been chilling here for years. You know, it's like, what do you mean? You just come in here asking to be enlightened? You think this is how it works? There's a line here, bro. And so what happens is, pretty much this guy ends up meditating, and eventually the guy says a general kind of universal instruction for enlightenment: go repeat God's name. So this man goes in a room and he does something impressive for a week, you know. He just is in that room constantly and just is saying God's name repetitively, to a point where all the disciples and the guru's like, okay, this guy's gone a bit extremely at it. Maybe this is the real thing, you know. And so after a week of this guy just saying this mantra endlessly, he gets up and he goes and he says, I have realized the truth. I have realized everything is Brahman. Everything is God. So he's realized everything is one. He's repeated in a room in a meditative style God's name so many times, right, in the story, that the guy suddenly feels he sees God everywhere. And he suddenly, as he's come out and he talks to the guru and the disciples, and he looks at the disciples, he's like, I don't see you, disciple, anymore. I see God here, or I see truth here. You know, and he looks at the guru and it's like, you're no longer a guru, you're the truth. You know, something like that, you know. And then the guru and the disciple, and the guru just looks at the disciple, he's like, I'm not convinced, bro. And so what happens is the guru, of course I'm animating it, but the guru tells this guy, he says, okay, I think you are. And he looks at the guy and he says, we have to eat vegetables as monks, so you have to go to the vegetable market, and today I'm going to let you go to the vegetable market. You enlightened guy, go to the vegetable market. And so the guy goes to the vegetable market, of course not in a derogatory way, I'm being playful here, but what happens is the guy is like, he's like, okay, vegetables for the monastery, let's celebrate or something, you know. And so look at what happens. The guy goes to the vegetable market, and everything he's looking at, he's like, I see Brahman in this. I see the ultimate truth in this, you know. He looks at like a branch on the ground. He's like, I see Brahman there, you know. And of course, listen, there's a moral to this story. So what happens? Suddenly the people in the market are running. This man has a case of the divine ego in this story. And so what happens is people are running in the market and they're like, there's a wild elephant in the market, get out of here, man. And the guy's like, I see Brahman in everything, nothing will happen to me. And he goes to the market and he's face to face with the elephant, and he looks in the eyes of the elephant, you know, and he's like, you're not an elephant, you're Brahman. And there is a silent moment, a deep moment. And then just like Hulk in Avengers, how he slams like Thor's brother, you know, the elephant hits this guy around, hurts this guy. This guy ends up going to the hospital. The people in the monastery somehow are notified. And so they come to see him. They're like, where'd this guy go? They hear the story and they get to him. And they bring the guy to the monastery. And the guy's like, the mantra you gave me didn't work, man. This is all bullshit, you know? And so this is where the guru looks at him. He's like, let me tell you, man. You think it was, but let me tell you what you didn't see. And he said, you saw Brahman in me, the disciple, and the branch on the ground and all this stuff. But you did not see Brahman in the voice of the person who came and told you don't go into that market. What that means is you were too obsessed with an idea of truth than to be your real self, to actually experience the truth. And so this is a very important point to consider, of the liberation of the self from the abstract world, and then from, in some sense, a segmentation of time. It's as if, man, I'm too busy taking care of the present moment to think about my past or the future. You know? It's because they emerge from there. So one can say the number zero can be, Mr. Within will say the number zero is the only transcendental number. Because it is the only number that is neither, in some sense, rational or irrational, or positive or negative, or in some sense, with a value. But it has a design. The number zero is the best metaphor for consciousness. It has a sort of value, but in some sense, it is empty. So it's like how our sight, there's this attributeless attention, this soul people are talking about, it's like the number zero. We see it, we acknowledge there's something here. But when we come to find it, it's as if it's empty. Kind of like your physical body is like water being in ice form, in solid state. Your mind is like, water being like water. And in some sense, your soul, that word that has stuck around, your soul is like gas. It is how from the visible aspects of your intelligence you consciously expand into the unknown. So just trust life and live, and many things that you feel are imperfect, it's not that their imperfections will go, the world and the standards and the state of your perfection will change. It's as if before the world becomes perfect, you have a different view on what perfection is. So it's the notion of the self-updating mind. We're kind of data processing biomechanisms, and it's like, the sky cannot be measured. I want to read some quotes about the concept of a hero. One is by Plato has this quote. He says, "A hero is born among 100. A wise man is found among 1,000. But an accomplished one might not be found even among 100,000 men." Govinda says, all of us start from zero. We take the right decision and become a hero. Dude, this guy is lyrically gifted. Wow, what a sentence. Harlan Ellison says, "History will decide if I'm a villain or a hero." Wow. Robert Downey Jr., this actor, has this quote. He says, "Do I want to be a hero to my son?" He says, "No, I would like to be a very real human being." That's hard enough. Wow. It's not really hard. It's the environment makes it hard. Jesus. I think a lot of these quotes are coming from actors. Okay, here. There's a quote from Jordan Peterson. He says, "A properly balanced story provides an equal representation of the negative and positive attributes of I could say the world, but it's actually a being. Harry Potter's a good example. So Harry's the hero, right? But he's tainted with evil. There's a dark and a light in every bit of that narrative. It's well balanced, yeah. Wow, this is a heavy quote. It's by Bob Feller. He says, I was only a gun captain on the battleship Alabama for 34 months. People have called me a hero for that, but I'll tell you this. Heroes don't come home, survivors come home. Wow. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. I find it's all about the quality of effort and attention that goes to every moment's action. Because if we really look at things from a complex way, we don't have enough energy. That means, this is why Leonardo said simplicity is the most ultimate sophistication, because the complexity eventually consumes. That means literally it's like we are simple natural creatures, but the world is becoming so complex that our evolution now has to adjust us. Rather than our technology adjusting to us, we are adjusting to our technology. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys.